Okay. We'll call the afternoon meeting on Wednesday to order. I guess you have one thing and then we're into executive sessions.
Correct. Good afternoon, Susan Eugenius, County Engineer. I have one quick thing. I normally would wait to Monday to bring you this, but it's an unusual one that we have not done. So there is, the city of Longview is about to do a road project up Columbia Heights, as you guys are aware, and they need additional right-of-way along there. And one of the parcels that they need this right-of-way from is a tax title property. So we've been working with Doug, and because it is a municipality for a public use, and because of the cost owed for this particular tax title process, we don't have to go out and do the whole auction process. So you will see on your agenda on Tuesday a resolution stating all the RCWs about why we can sell it in this manner and sell it with direct negotiation to the city of Longview for their use in this particular roadway project. So this is not the normal process for selling tax title, but because of its size, it's very small, has a low value. Basically, the resolution states we're doing direct negotiations and selling it to them for the cost of what is owed on that parcel. So we wanted to bring this to you today in case you had big concerns or questions, so we could delay it if we needed to.
What is the cost of the parcel?
It is right around $2,000.
What's
It
the
is,
what's the size of it?
let me get my glasses out so I
Okay.
can read.
After hearing yesterday about our radios, I think it's worth 120.
Well, there we go. That'll make it a lot easier for me. Let's see. Management staff. Of course, it doesn't have the exact size of it. It's this big on the scale of the map. It is a very small parcel. I have the parcel map.
Rough idea? That big, huh?
It's at the intersection of Columbia Heights and Maplewood. It's a
Oh.
little sliver.
So how did you arrive at the value?
What was owed on the taxes?
Okay, so who owns it or has the back due taxes?
I don't know because it's held in tax title, so I'm not sure how long ago this went into tax title.
Okay,
If I can get you all those answers by Monday, because I'm sure Anna researched it all.
I can tell you right now, it's not anything I'm gonna lose sleep over.
Probably a piece we've had a while.
Yes.
And once it gets to this point, there's no recourse for the previous property owner to, it's done.
I believe that is correct because it's gone out to auction twice already and no one has bid on it. So we've had it long enough for it to have gone out to auction, however many years ago they did the last auction. So.
That does look like $120,000 piece to me too, right?
Just
So you
tell a
guys-
few we forgot a zero or two.
Okay.
I'd do it just to see the look on their face.
Well, if I get to be there, I'll vote for that. I want to see their.
So this will be on consent agenda on Tuesday?
Yes,
Okay.
that is all I had unless you guys had anything else for me.
Doesn't look like it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Real quick, on a side note, do you know where are we at with the with the road that what the Port of Kalamba was interested in? I think it was-
The vacation.
Yeah,
It is still, not my highest priority because I've been trying to get projects out. If you guys would like me it to become my highest priority, I can make it so.
It's not, I just need to get a hold of Eric and let him know where we're at.
Because when the port originally reached out to me, they told me this is not a high priority for us. It is something that we want to establish in the future. So that is why it has never risen to my high priority. If they had come to me and said, hey, this is now a high priority to us because we want to do X, Y, Z, I could have moved it up. So. All right,
Okay.
enjoy the rest of your meetings.
Thank you.
The rest of it looks like 2 executive sessions, one for contract negotiations, 20 minutes, and one for real property, 10 minutes. Okay, we can adjourn to those.
The board is extending the executive session for a period of 10 minutes until 2:17 p.m.
Okay, back from executive session, no decisions were rendered. We got a few minutes till 2:30 when we start up again with Department of Wildlife, so we'll take a short break till 2:30 and then we'll fire up. 2:30 workshop. We're very happy to have the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife with us today. We appreciate you coming in. And I'll just turn it over. I know you got a team with you, so we'll just turn it over and let you go. Is a little light on?
It's down towards the bottom. There you go.
I got it now.
There you go.
All right. Thank you, commissioners, for the invitation to join you today. Thank you, Kelly, for helping coordinate this. I'm Ryan Salee. I'm the Southwest Region Director for WDFW. And I've brought with me a team of folks here from DFW to help represent specific program interests. If you have questions after I move through our overview presentation today. I've got Bryce Glasser here. He's our fish program manager. We've got Britton Ransford is our communications specialist. Dr. Sandra Yonker is our wildlife program manager. Dave Howe, our habitat program manager. That's Bill Fashing from, you all probably know him. This is Sergeant Anderson from our enforcement program, of course. So thank you again. I'll go ahead and kick it off.
Okay.
We've got some slides for you here. So we're going to put those up. There we are. Perfect. Well, we've about done that slide, I'd say. And we can go ahead. I was warned there was a little delay. Go ahead to the next one, Kelly. Thank you. Yeah, so first, just want to remind folks of the mission of Fish and Wildlife, which is that we are dedicated to preserving, protecting, and perpetuating the state's fish, wildlife, and ecosystems while providing sustainable fish and wildlife, recreational, and commercial opportunities. Thank you. So just a slide here to showcase DFW's values. Values I'm sure we all share. Accountability, service, professionalism, integrity, respect, and empathy. These are 6 regions at WDFW. We characterize the Southwest region as Region 5, covers 6 counties. Go ahead. And then more specifically, here is our Southwest region, so you can see the coverage area. And then here we are, I want to give some Southwest region highlights around our diverse landscapes, which include both Western and Eastern habitats. It spans 5 ecoregions and presents a variety of unique management opportunities. We have several key ecosystem types that you can see here, from tidal mudflats and wetlands to ancient lava flows and volcanic deposits. In addition, on the next slide, wanted to showcase some of our fishing opportunities. Yes, here we are, which is something that is no secret to all of you, but we have abundant fishable lakes and rivers. Of course, this encompasses the Lower Columbia. The Columbia River is managed cooperatively with area tribes, other state agencies, and the federal government, and supports both recreational and commercial fishing opportunities, in addition to providing critical habitat for native salmonids and other aquatic species. Thank you. Next slide. At this point, I'm going to go into some program-specific updates, some of which will be wholly relevant to Cowlitz County. So we'll go ahead to the next slide here. There we are. That's perfect. The priorities of the wildlife program that Dr. Yonker oversees in R5 are management and recovery of many species, including game, endangered and threatened species, wildlife conflict management, private lands access. We have 4 wildlife areas and 80+ water access areas. Next slide, please. To dig in a little bit more to the wildlife conflict piece, we offer response to commercial deer and elk damage, cooperative deer and elk fencing projects, response and assistance to cougar and bear sightings or complaints, depredation investigations, and proactive wolf conflict public engagement. Next, please. A little bit here now on our private lands access program. So this in the Southwest region, we have 75,000 plus acres and are growing. Local partnerships and federal grant funding combine to create mentored hunting experience for youth and management of pheasant releases on private lands. We also coordinate hunting access on industrial timberland. Next slide. So a little more detail here on those 4 wildlife areas, which span over 54,000 acres and over 80 water access areas for fishing, boating, and camping. These are just a few of the beautiful photos from some of those wildlife areas. Thank you. Want to offer some Cowlitz County specific highlights around the Mudflow Wildlife Area Unit, which has the highest elk density in the region. We've also been engaged in acquisition of the Hofstadt area, which is up to, actually we're purchasing this coming year, 7,500 acres there. We can get into this a little bit more. Did you? Yes, please. Oh. Oh, thank you. Excuse me, Sandra. Thank you for clarifying. That's right. We also are conducting a black-tailed deer survey with a goal of collaring up to 80 deer to better understand the deer population. Thank you, Sandra. And now with some specifics on our fish program in Region 5. So it's a lot to it. This is our largest program at DFW. The same is true for Region 5. Their priorities relate to tributary fishery management, salmon and steelhead monitoring, hatchery operations, and just general engagement. So as it relates to tributary fishery management, we're looking at anadromous species, resident species, warm water species. Related to salmon and steelhead monitoring, there are 72 populations, most of which are ESA listed. We have 14 hatchery facilities in the Southwest region, and 6 of those are in Cowlitz County. On our engagement side of that work, the hydropower technical forums, Bryce is very engaged in those, and then active and habitat restoration and fish recovery. So there's a great deal of overlap across our programs between fish, habitat, and wildlife. Next slide, please. I wanted to offer a little bit of an overview on the Toutle Fish Collection Facility, which is a partnership with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. We're updating DFW's fish collection facility on the North Fork Toutle River, which supports trap and haul of salmon and steelhead around the sediment retention structure, which was built after the Mount St. Helens eruption. This is a requirement for the Army Corps as part of their biological opinion associated with raising the sediment retention structure. It's pretty favorable cost for us on that. It's an 80-20 between Army Corps and DFW to update that fish collection facility. And DFW owns and maintains that facility. And then the Army Corps owns and maintains the sediment retention structure. So it's a little more there. Thank you. The project goal here for the fish collection facility is to improve collection efficiency and transport survival, which will also facilitate the reintroduction of Chinook above the SRS, above that sediment retention structure. It's currently at 60% design and construction is scheduled for 26-27. We're also looking for that design to include lamprey passage there. Moving on to our hydropower engagement, we have this Pacific Core, the Lewis Fish Passage Project, which is developing 60% design for 2 upstream and 1 downstream fish passage facilities. Operations are scheduled for June of 2026. We're also making hatchery program improvements, collaborating with Pacific Core and Tacoma Power. And we're creating and implementing transition plans to improve hatchery operations and completing updated hatchery and genetic management plans. We also make sure that we're actively participating in technical committees to meet fish passage and recovery standards. Thank you, Kelly. Next slide here is focused on salmon and steelhead recovery assessments. Mention here the Lower Columbia Fish Recovery Board, which completed a viability analysis, and Lower Columbia, I'm sorry, may I have a drink of water? Feeling a little parched here. Is there any? Oh, can I run out? May I run out for just a
You
moment?
bet.
Thank you, sorry about that.
Do we have water bottles up there?
All water. She went to-
Anybody need a break? No. It's a lot of talking, you know? With you, of course. Although it may feel like at you for now, but we'll be through it here. We're gonna wait for the other commissioner to come back. Oh,
I supply some of mine.
wonderful.
There you go.
Well, thank you. You think doing this enough, I'd come prepared. Thanks for your patience. So I just want to go back here to Lower Columbia Fish Recovery Board, which completed a progress report on implementation of conservation and sustainable fisheries plan. Some of the key findings from this report here are that 35% of all populations have improved viability, no declines in viability documented for any species, more natural origin fish than at the time of ESA listing, except for spring Chinook, and 64% of all populations still at very low to low viability, and ESA delisting is not yet under consideration. Next slide, please. That rounds us out for fish program, but the Columbia River Division, which covers multiple regions, is housed under fish program at our agency, so I want to focus on that program's work. Dr. Charlene Hurst leads this division. She's not able to join us today, but we do have, of course, the ability to follow up if you have any questions about things that we can't answer for you here. So just to go through, the division has about 45 to 60 staff, depending on the time of year that we're in. Their priorities are fisheries management in the Columbia River main stem, fisheries monitoring, research and stock assessment, the Northern Pike Minnow Program, which is a sport reward fishery, and involvement with main stem hydro system operations and agreements as they relate to WDFW managed resources. I want to talk a little bit here about lamprey. On the North Fork Toutle River, we're monitoring lamprey populations. We're working to add lamprey passage at the SRS. As I mentioned earlier, on the South Fork of the Toutle River, we're supporting restoration planning, advising on salvage methods, and construction tactics to protect lamprey. And then just the regional work that we're doing on lamprey, stream team assessing fishways that may block passage, using eDNA and electrofishing to detect lamprey. Go ahead. Also want to talk about Eulicon and smelt. The license requirement went into effect in June 2024. This is a topic that is, you are no stranger to, certainly. WDFW implemented a tentative schedule strategy in 2025 and opened 4 dates for harvest. Eulicon were not observed in the Cowlitz River until after the 2025 smelt season was completed. The run size was estimated to be similar to 2024 with about 10.2 million pounds or 116 million adult fish. Columbia River Division also oversees the Northern Pike Minnow Program that I mentioned, which is a cooperative BPA-funded effort between WDFW, ODFW, and PSMFC, Pacific States Marine Fisheries. And it aims to reduce predation on juvenile salmonids in the Columbia River Basin. The target here for us is 10 to 20% of predator-sized northern pike minnow to be harvested. Program components include the primary sport reward fishery and as a secondary dam angling. A little bit more on the sport reward fishery. It operates in 5 of 6 DFW regions. It's staffed by nearly 28 people. It's currently in its 35th season. This is a legacy program for us at DFW. It's very popular. It averages 165,000 fish harvested annually. 5.59 million fish have been removed since 1991, and over 1 million public anglers have registered to participate in this program since the program's start. There's some outreach videos that have been prepared by the Columbia River Division that are accessible on YouTube. I really like these. They're well worth taking a look at if you have any interest in learning a little bit more about how we manage sustainable fisheries in the Columbia River, as well as the second video here on science sharing and sustainability. Thank you. Going to talk now about our enforcement program. Again, Sergeant Anderson has joined us today. Thank you for being here. In Regent 5, we currently have 19 enforcement officers with additional positions planned for the future. Next slide, please. Some of our priorities and strategic objectives here for the enforcement program are to support safe, orderly, and sustainable recreational and commercial use, protect fish wildlife habitats and public lands, respond to human-wildlife safety conflicts, address public safety incidents and serve local communities, engage in outreach and education. In terms of patrol priorities, developed collaboratively with regional managers and supervisors and align with agency conservation principles and the strategic plan. Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to address this here related to protecting agency lands. I think the pandemic obviously was exceptionally hard on public lands. Same was true for ours. And enforcement officers work with agency staff and outside agencies to deter lands abuse, eliminate ongoing issues, and ensure our lands are safe for people and wildlife. Next slide. I want to talk a little bit about regulation compliance here, which ensures that officer patrol presence is, excuse me, we are ensuring that officer patrol presence is vital to the enforcement of regulations. Fish and Wildlife officers patrol outdoor activities with significant participation and those activities where people don't expect to see them. Patrol presence results in deterrence and resource conservation, and working with other agencies is essential to accomplish our mission. I would say personally that our enforcement program, it is an absolutely essential component of our work. Our officers are part of the lifeblood of our organization, and they work across program to effectively implement and show up in all the ways that we just discussed. The scope of their work is massive, and I'm really proud of our enforcement folks in that program. Go ahead. All right, now we're gonna go into a little bit of work on the Habitat program. Habitat program's priorities are the administration of the hydraulic code for protection of fish life, growth management assistance to local governments, forest practice technical assistance to the Department of Natural Resources, and restoration and salmon recovery technical assistance. Just a couple more slides here. One of the priorities that we wanted to raise for you here today is the Toutle and Spirit Lake Collaborative, where we work closely with Cowlitz County along with other state, federal, tribal, and local partners. The focus areas for the collaborative include floodplain development, sediment management, and fish passage to Spirit Lake. This was formed to address long-term risks after the 1980 eruption. And DFW is an active participant and a signatory to the local cooperative agreement with the county and the Army Corps. Lastly, wanted to highlight the Interstate I-5 Wildlife Passage effort. This is focused on creating safe crossing options for animals. It's a project that aims to reduce wildlife and vehicle collisions on I-5, along I-5. And it's part of the Washington Habitat Connectivity Action Plan. The project is still in the early planning stages of scoping various locations and feasibility. And with that, I have given the overview of what we do in Region 5. I've given an overview of what our programs are up to. I am just so very honored and pleased to work at Fish and Wildlife. It is such a smart crew of folks. And I mentioned the enforcement program earlier. It includes every single one of the program managers and staff that we have sitting here. It is sort of a dream gig. And you know how impactful the work that Fish and Wildlife does is in our communities. It's certainly true in Cowlitz County, and I'm happy to be here with all of them and to have a chance to talk with you. What do you all want to talk about? What are your questions?
When you talked about I'm just curious, 75,000 acres where it's a private, it's kind of a partnership. What are their expectations for letting you come on their land or how's that work maybe?
Yeah, Sandra, can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah.
On their property, and it can be timber or it can just be somebody who's got a lot of acreage, and we do both habitat and hunting access. And we have what we call agreement, for lack of a better word. So you can just say, anybody can come on my property, you might have seen signs where it's just feel free to hunt. And then from there we have programs that get very, very specific, like if you want to know exactly who's on your property, you can say when they can be there, where they can be there. So our private land files work with the landowner to accommodate whatever they're going to allow in terms of access. Sometimes some folks don't want access, they just want habitat improvements for wildlife. Some people are not interested in that, and so having folks have the opportunity to hunt and get the access.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Sandra.
Spirit Lake,
Yeah,
because we have a group out there and I get questions on it every so often.
okay.
They're telling me you're planning a fish survey in June, a bass survey.
I'll look to Bryce for that.
I'm thinking that might be Silver Lake.
Silver Lake, yeah, sorry, Silver Lake, yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, Silver Lake, is, we have recently, just in the last year and a half, expanded our warm
Yeah.
water, is that Silver Lake? Yeah, is that?
Yeah, they prefer to have you at the microphone because everything gets recorded and then the little green light
Sure.
There's,
So Bryce Glasser, yeah, so recently, just in the last year or so, we've expanded our warm water monitoring program in Region 5. So we have a little bit more capacity than we used to. And Silver Lake is probably in our region and here in Cowlitz County, the premier warm water fishing opportunity that we have for bass and crappie and other warm water fish. And so over the history of, over decades of time, we've done several different efforts to try to do surveys to see what the kind of assemblage of fish is there and how they're doing. And so we have some work planned this coming summer to do some assessments and look at the,
and when you get those assessments, does that kind of give you an indication of how the lake's doing? It can?
And in terms of, are we seeing the diversity of species we want? Are we seeing the sizes and size distribution of fish that we're interested in? And, how can we shift our management to address things that,
Yeah.
so the more data we have, the better we can suggest on how to manage the lake.
How far does wildlife go into kind of monitoring the lake? Like I got a question, would they ever consider core samples? Or things like that, or,
So I might have Dave talk about some of that, the water quality and environmental sampling is a little outside of the fish programs.
A little bit different. Yeah,
Dave, do you want to come over here? Bryce?
yeah, we got 3 different
All right.
microphones, just make sure the green light's on, there you go.
Yeah, hi Commissioners, I'm Dave Howe with Habitat Program. To get to your question, we've definitely been on the work group for Silver Lake over the years and work in partnership with Department of Health, Department of Ecology. Typically those, anything that's related to water quality or public health falls sort of outside of our purview at Fish and Wildlife and more into those agency purviews there, but we're happy to like advise on that stuff
Okay.
and provide perspective. Yeah.
Well, I'm very excited that you guys are here and I could probably talk to you for hours. But I do have a couple of questions that I get asked. With being an outdoorsman and a hunter and a fisher myself, I'm often find myself in conversations with people asking all sorts of questions. This year in particular, one of the questions that we get asked all the time is the 38% increase in licenses. One of the things that the perception is, and I know you guys don't set this, you're just the regional directors, but the perception is that we're seeing a more and more increase in cost and fewer opportunities. Can you speak to that as far as what we're doing with the increase in cost and where the money goes? Because the fishing industry in the state generates a lot of money. And one of the things that frustrates me, and here again, I know you guys don't have anything to do with this, but that money goes into the general fund as opposed to going into a fund dedicated specifically for what we're talking about right here. And so seeing a 38% increase in licensing is tough for a lot of people to swallow.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. I understand that increase can feel staggering and draw some questions from folks who are users out there recreating. I don't have details with me on what that fee increase is going to. Bryce, do you have any of that, or Dave?
Well, or Britton, I can
Britton,
speak to a
yeah.
little bit. Britton, did you bring talking points or do you want me to? I can touch on it. So my understanding, and I think, we're all waiting kind of with bated breath here to see what the state budget ends up being here. But the proposal for the increase was not a request of the agency. It was generated through legislative request. And my understanding is that it's an offset revenue source. So in other words, the proposal that we've heard explained to us is that this increase, because as you said, it does go into general fund, that they would be decreasing our general fund proportionally to what the expected revenue from
the license fee increase would generate. So there, there's a projected amount of money they think that increase will generate. And my understanding is the proposal that they would be reducing our general fund to that equivalent amount. So it's essentially a net zero for our agency. We wouldn't gain additional dollars.
Which to me is kind of crazy.
Yeah, so.
I would expect that, if the people buying the licenses are gonna pay 38% more, that Sergeant Anderson's pay should be increased by a percentage of that increase. And you guys should benefit as a department from that increase. And that is a frustrating thing to see. And that's not you guys, like I said, I understand that's the state, but it's something that fishermen and hunters, they're the ones that are paying these licenses, these fees. And a lot of people are moving out of state, or they're not moving out of state, but they're going out of state to hunt. Because of the fees that we charge here, and the opportunities that we're seeing fewer and fewer of. So that brings me to my second question. With the deer collaring program, the study of the blacktail, what exactly is it that we're looking for to find in that study?
Sandra can speak to that.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Sandra Yonker, Wildlife Program. So for the west side deer, so we have mule deer on the east side in Klickitat County, and in this Cowlitz, Clark, we have black-tailed deer. And the habitat, it's really hard to see them. So our normal surveys, our aerial surveys is the easiest way. That's how we do our elk surveys. That's how we do our mule deer surveys. And so it's been really hard to understand the population without a survey method. Right now, we can only rely on the harvest. And that's great that we have the harvest numbers, but that's only one component of managing a population. And it's not holistic if you don't understand more. So what we're trying to do, because aerial surveys are expensive, this collaring project we're putting collars on the animals, and we're putting out camera stations to detect when a collar is near. So just like we do with the surveys, you have sort of an error, like how many times do you see a deer? Could you have seen a deer? Did you not see the deer because of the habitat? But there is a deer there because it's collared and it's not being detected. So from all of that information, you can basically get a better understanding of the population of how many there are. And so that's why we're doing it, is because we only have harvest to go with. And if you read our status and trends reports, we have some of the highest harvest of blacktails in Western Washington. And so it's a great opportunity. We also know that habitat, is less habitat for them. So we just want to understand how many we actually have and use that with the harvest information to manage the population. And we just haven't had a method, so we're trying to get a method.
Is part of that program, does it involve interviewing hunters?
No, it does not. This is purely just on a detectability of deer out on the landscape.
This is just me, but when we're up hunting, and I'm sure Commissioner Farrell might be able to attest to this, but we see deer or don't see deer depending on the day and the weather in the area that we're in. And hunters have a pretty good idea as to, they're not gonna tell you, there's this many deer, but they can tell you whether there's a lot of them or not in certain areas, because they're out there scouting, they have cameras, and they probably have quite a bit of valuable information that might be beneficial too. Because I know my boys are constantly putting up cameras and checking them, so they know how many deer and elk are in certain areas based on the camera that they have.
Yeah, so I would say that we're not doing a formal survey of folks. We have done a survey of Washington residents with specific wildlife questions, but not specific just to that. I would say that our biologists and our customer service staff work a lot with folks because we get so many people that call us or that we interact with while out in the field. and definitely get that information. And we welcome that information. Absolutely.
The other question that I have is, you talked about hatcheries in your program. Can somebody speak to why we're closing hatcheries in our rivers locally?
Sure. I can try. So hopefully we aren't
Hopefully we
closing
won't be.
anymore. Again, this Bryce Glasser fish program. My understanding is that there are 2 hatcheries on the, potential reduction list right now currently from a funding perspective. One of them here in this county, the North Toutle Hatchery on the Green River, and then another's the Skamania Hatchery on the Washougal River. The funding for those, most of our, let's see, a large portion of our hatchery funding comes from Mitchell Act funding through federal sources. Over the years with the reduction in, or the flat funding of federal funds, the state has offered or has funded backfill funding for many of those hatcheries and to help support continuing the programs. And so the only ones I know of that are proposed are those 2 right now. All the other hatcheries we continue to try to operate. We have had to close over the years. The Eloquiment Hatchery was closed back in, I think, 2010. And then the Grays River Hatchery, excuse me, was closed. I'm trying to think of the exact year, but 2019 or so. Those had to do more, somewhat with budget constraints, but also with some federal, our ability to meet federal permits, and the amount of production that we're allowed to produce has to, because most of our populations are ESA listed, we have to balance the amount of production that we release with protection.
So that they stay on the list?
No, so that we can hopefully recover the natural origin populations and limit the impacts the hatcheries have on them. Yeah. So we have some compliance standards.
Yeah, I'm not sure how far into the conversation we want to go, because there's so many things that just, I sit on the Fish Recovery Board myself. And there's so many things that drive me nuts about the way that we do things. For example, we talk about, I asked this question, where did we get the DNA start for the hatcheries from the native fish in the rivers? Is there any difference in the DNA from a hatchery fish and one that's native? No, there is no DNA difference. So I'm trying to understand why we would reduce the production from the hatcheries when the gentleman that I was speaking with from the WDFW was telling me that the production and the fish runs are endangered, that some of them have been reduced by 50%. And I'm just trying to understand, if we have hatcheries on those rivers, why we have a reduction in fish runs. And he gave me what I would call the correct political bureaucratic answer. And my question back was, and I don't know if you guys can answer this, but my question was the Quinault River. I said, the Indians run that river, and they run that thing full tilt. They're running steelhead through that thing, and it's not it's an off day if you don't catch a 15-pound steelhead in that river, multiple of them. And the answer to that, I said, why don't we do that? Why aren't we running our hatcheries the way that they're running theirs? And the answer was, well, they work by a different set of rules. And so that's what's frustrating as a fisherman myself, seeing the increase in cost and the opportunities that are taken from sportsmen, like you said, from the federal government, because we have this endangered species list. And my retort would be, how is it endangered if I can go to Winco and buy it? How is it something that's endangered when we have hatcheries that produce these fish? And so it's something that if you guys have any say in it or input in it, there's a lot of frustration around that. And I've expressed my frustration on the board with regards to the salmon recovery because, for example, the Kalama River, I hear, well, the runs are down 50% from what they were 20 years ago. And then I asked, well, why don't we increase the production on the hatchery to get it to where it was, 20 years ago. Well, because the river may not be able to handle that. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, it handled it 20 years ago. Why would it not be able to handle it today? And so I feel like the bureaucracy of the government gets involved and just really stipends a lot of things. So that's my main thing was I was just wondering why we're reducing the number of the output on some of the hatcheries also.
Yeah, so I appreciate, it's a complicated issue. You're right. We probably don't have enough time to get into all the nuanced discussions there. Glad to have a follow-up with you if you're interested in that. I think there is some complexity there with, the understanding the relationship between naturally produced fish and hatchery produced fish and the domestication effects and that interplay with how fish are able to reproduce in the natural environment that are at play. And then also, as you mentioned, the federal requirements we have under our permits do restrict our ability some. And we are, generally supportive of some of those as well, because we're trying to work towards recovery of our natural populations and get to a place where we have harvestable, healthy and harvestable levels of natural origin fish. The more we can do that, the less we have to rely on hatchery production. But it's definitely a balancing act and something we're constantly involved with. So yeah, I'd be glad to talk with you more.
Yeah, I would definitely
point.
love to.
Okay.
Because I, to the comment that you just made with regards to the hatchery and the natural fish, I have seen hatchery salmon in the same bed as a native salmon breeding. My personal opinion to this point is that any fish that has an adipose fin in the river is spawn of a hatchery fish at this point. Because if the river's had a hatchery for any period of time, a native fish isn't going to go, oh, that's a hatchery fish, I'm not going to go get in that bed, right? So yes, I would love to pick your brain and to chat with you about that, because it is something that I feel I relate it to chickens. Chickens, there's like, I don't know, it's like 14 times the amount of chickens on this planet than there are human beings. And why is that? Because we all eat chicken. And so if it was a food source and we made it a food source and treated it that way with the production of with the hatcheries, there'd be fish all over in all the rivers. It's the native part of it that I don't quite understand. But yeah, I would love to chat with you. The other question I have is, I didn't hear you guys talk about the hoof rot with the elk and that situation. Is there any info on that?
Yes, WSU leads the research effort around elk hoof disease. I want to invite Sandra back up to see if there's anything else that you might offer on what we're doing to that end.
In terms of updates, so how much do you know? How much time do you have?
I would say I'm pretty versed
Okay.
in hoof rot.
Like Ryan said, WSU does lead the effort. The part that we have participated in over the past couple of years is an incentive program for hunters that you may or may not know about. And that is one management action that we have taken. So obviously the research that WFW did and then that WSU has continued is really looking at the origin, how is it transmitted, and is there anything we can do about it? Is there anything we can do about it is pretty simple. Once it's on the landscape, it's not going to leave. And it's not a cattle operation, right? We can't treat wild animals. And so that's sad, right? And just accepting that is really hard because we care about them. We want a robust and healthy population. So we know it's on the landscape. So now what do? How can we try to at least reduce it or manage it somehow, since we know that we cannot eliminate it? Especially since we just don't really know how long it lives in the soil. It gets transmitted from one animal to the other. Why do deer not get it, but elk do, and they walk on the same paths? All those kinds of questions we just don't have the answers to yet. And we have this whole research crew that is working on that. From a management perspective, what can the agency do since we're the managers? That's why we implemented the incentive program. And so that allows hunters to participate in the management versus having, sharpshooters go out there and target hoof disease animals. And so this is a way to, that's something we really heard, speaking of engaging with folks from all the public meetings we've had and all the interactions we've had with the public, and the hunters really want to participate in the solution, and we want them to be a part of the solution. So that's why we've implemented that. Has it been successful? Don't know really yet. We're only in I think it's our third year now. And we've made tweaks along the way. So we'll definitely stay tuned on that. Unfortunately, we were the hub right here, the start of hoof disease. Have never seen this in a wild population of ungulates before. And so we were really just like a doctor. What is this? By process of elimination, doing all the tests. What is this? What is this? And we finally narrowed it down to basically a consortium of bacterial methods, basically, or where it comes from, but how it gets transmitted, how long it stays, all of those kinds of things we just don't know. And so you can't manage that, but we can manage at least target the animals that have it. There was a study done looking at the impact of hoof disease on survival, and those results are hopefully going to be released this summer. But just it's pretty common knowledge that that hoof disease does impact productivity and survival of females versus healthy animals. It's probably pretty intuitive, but the study did show that. So we know that
Did you say the study was on elk?
Yes,
Oh.
it was on the elk on the Mount St. Helens elk herd. And that's why, as a hunter, you might have seen that we really reduced the amount of female tags on the Mount St. Helens herd, even on the Willapa herd as well, which is part of that's in Cowlitz County as well, trying to mitigate the impact of hoof disease, right? So you have the balance of available habitat, you have the factor of hoof disease. So it's a little bit of a unfortunate perfect storm, and we've definitely seen a decline in the population. So originally, the Mount St. Helens elk herd plan called for a reduction in the herd. We achieved that, and then hoof disease happened, and so now the herd is decreased even more. So that's why you'll see the reduction in number of tags.
Yeah, I think the reduction in the cow tags was a good move. I was in total favor of that. What would you say to the fact that the increase in predators has been on the rise? And just to give you an example, prior to 9 years ago, I would never see a cougar in the day. I'd never see one. And I would say in the last 10 years, we have seen cougars every year in the day. And we have seen the number of bear during the day, a lot more bears. One of the things that concerns me is the fact that we're getting rid of bear seasons, spring bear seasons, and the management on the predators. The increase in that population has really hit the herd hard also. Do you know if there's any plans to do anything to increase or to change the regulations on predator hunting so that they're not killing so many elk?
Well, that's a big topic. It has been in front of our commission for a couple years. Complicated. Cause and effect. There might be correlations, but we don't really have cause and effect on some of the statements that you mentioned. But we just are in the process of doing a bear density study. And so it is a rotating study. So it was in Region 5. That's 2 years, will be 2 years ago, and then it'll go to Region 6, and it will come back to Region 5 and doing a bear density study in different landscapes. So from public lands to private lands. And we really, for Region 5, just the initial year that we did that, showed an incredible difference between the density on public lands versus the density on private timber and private lands. And so we didn't have that information before. Again, we were going on harvest, right? And that is not the only piece of information you want when you manage a population.
Mm.
So understanding the difference in density on where the bears are, we do have a good, healthy population of bears, absolutely. The cougar research implies that there hasn't been much of a difference or changes in the density of cougars. But again, that can really vary from multiple, where the prey are, right? Where the food availability is, and the changes in habitat in terms of, as we know, cats are very good at living around areas, and you wouldn't know it unless you're obviously very in tune with that, and so can see it or have the cameras to see it, or you see it yourself, right? So I would say right now, the commission is going to pass or is in the middle of it right now, new regulations. And with a lot of input from a lot of folks, public, internal, other scientists. And we're basically going to implement that and see how we do with that, with those new regulations.
Thank you.
It's a tough topic.
Yeah. It's it is, I can see that it's obviously a complex one. But when I mean, like this last year, we saw 3 cougars during the hunting season. Now granted, we hunt the different seasons, but nonetheless, I never used to see a cougar. And we saw 3. And I know quite a few people who also saw quite a few cats. And there was one day that we saw 6 bears in different areas, which was, I never saw a bear before 10 years ago. So there's definitely quite a few of them that are out there.
On that.
And yeah, and as a hunter, I'm just looking at it, let's do whatever we can to give the elk a fighting chance. You know, if we're reducing elk, cow tags, and we're doing other things to help mitigate the death rate that they're facing right now, I would think that reducing predators also would be one to help, because cougars and bear got to eat deer, elk every day. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the bigger changes for the cougar regulations is that it's basically a model and that takes in harvest, takes in the age and the sex of the animal. That's why you're asked to bring in the animal if you harvest one. We take samples. All of that is inputted into a model. One of the biggest changes is that we have what we call depredation takes. So if there's a cougar has depredated on an animal and that animal is removed by either enforcement or wildlife, those numbers didn't used to be part of the model. And so that's a big change. Those are now going to be included in the model so that we have a better understanding of all types of take and across the different age groups. I mean, I can also talk to you. I'll come with Bryce and we can talk about that.
It'd be a good conversation.
Right, in terms of just the biology of cougars and how they operate on the landscape and their territories and sinks and sources and all that kind of stuff all comes into play on that kind of thing. So I guess I'll tag along with you and we'll have a conversation.
One other thing, what do you guys do with the elk hooves that are turned in for that program? Where do they go?
They go to WSU, so their lab does the actual analysis. Originally, when WFW started the research, we actually sent it to like 5 different labs, one in the UK. We didn't want anybody to be, doing the same so that we would have results, and all the results came back the same. So now they just go to WSU once, and that crew are the ones that take the lead on that. So you've probably seen the barrels and the ask for hooves. And if you're a master hunter, sometimes those folks will help us bring additional if we need fresh hooves versus hooves that are just in the barrel, because those are different types of testing on what they're looking for. Yeah. We have a freezer and then we ship it out.
Yeah. Thank you.
Absolutely.
I can see why you could continue down this line of questioning since you have all of the experts in the room right now.
Yeah, this is actually, I could
Yeah.
really do this all day long. So.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sandra.
Well, we've been about an hour. I don't want to take all your time. we appreciate you coming in. Hopefully we can do this again. I think these updates are good for us and good for you, hopefully. Hear some things from others. But
Very much so. And
yeah,
I would say if next time, now that we've given an overview and we've talked about some of your sort of areas of interest, if you let us know what you'd like to dig into a bit more, we can come back and have that conversation.
okay.
So we'd be happy to
Cool.
come back and appreciate your invitation to join you today.
We'll take you
Thanks
up
to
on that.
everybody for coming.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
all.
Yeah,
Thank
thank you,
you.
guys.
We will adjourn. Thank you.